growth, success of an entrepreneur.
We've raised the bar.
Learn firsthand from successful business owners and create your own path to success.
I'm going to show you how great I am.
It's time to hit the road to growth with team lead of the Enriquez Group, Realtor Vinny.
Hi, Realtor Growth listeners. Today I have Nate Fisher. He is the founder of Peak 10 Group, based out of Ohio. Thank you, Nate, for being here today.
Appreciate it. Glad to be here. Welcome.
Yeah, I mean, so you got your hands in a lot of cookie jars right there. 400 properties that you self-manage, or your company does?
Yeah. I've got a portfolio of 400 units in 4 buildings just on the edge of downtown Dayton, Ohio that I manage on a day-to-day basis. So I'm an owner-operator.
Was it more exciting now looking at the big picture of the properties that you're managing and see the flow of it, or kind of building up to that platform of that first deal, talking to the actual seller and kind of working through the nitty gritty of it all?
Well, I think that, I grew up around this business. And so the operation, I grew up in a multifamily family, so my dad was, when I was a little kid and, started out working on the properties, we were been property managers our whole life and owner operators. And so, I grew up around this business. So the operational side of multifamily has been in my blood, but it's not the sexy part, but it's the necessary part. And so, I do like the deal component of it, the hunt, if you will, but after the hunt, you got to operate. So, I like both sides of that. Right.
Well, let's rewind it. Let's talk more about that. So your family in the property management business, I know at least in California, it's been a lot more on the renter side. It probably was a little bit different, I guess, when your father was managing properties to yourself.
Oh, definitely. I mean, I'll call it the wild, wild west. And they used to call my dad the rent man. He would roll around in his beat up work truck with a big Doberman and walk around and collect the rent, right? Like cowboy hat. It was like it was the wild, wild west. It's definitely changed as it's changed a little bit for sure. It wasn't as corporate, if you will.
Well, so when you're growing up, did you know you wanted to kind of follow your father's footsteps, or was it, what happened there?
Yeah. So, I've always loved this, the business and knew that I wanted to be involved in real estate. I didn't always know sort of, where I fit in. And so, I went to college, went to Ohio State. I got a real estate degree from the business college there. I started knowing I wanted to get into real estate. Didn't really know exactly where. And, I've got an older brother who's 7 years older than me. And I sort of, he'd worked in the family business his whole life. And I sort of watched watched him and knew that I didn't necessarily want to have the relationship that my father and my brother had. Pretty strenuous and stressful. And so I didn't go right to work for the family business. I worked for a Canadian ski resort development company and kind of learned the corporate world for a while and came back and worked in the family business in 2008.
And so you come back, and was it the intention, I guess, to jump into the family business? Was it because, I know when the next generation is working for, I guess, sometimes the older generation, there can be a butting in the heads. I want to do it my own way. This is not the right way of going about it. I'm going to start my own thing. What happened there with that process of, okay, I'm going to work with my family's business?
Well, so 2003, I started up the first version of Peak 10 Group in 2003, 2004, and did some small commercial development projects. And then the Great Recession hit, and there just really wasn't any work. And so it was sort of out of necessity that I had to go back. And, I had one child and getting ready to have another one, and I needed some money. So I ended up at the family business in 2008, delivering, making $12 an hour working for the family business and delivering pizzas at night, trying to figure out how to have our second child in '09. So, it
Well, what does that feel like? I mean, especially, I mean, if you've already done some developments before that in '03, and then you have to come back to the family business, not probably make it as much as you're used to, that had to be a very hold your ego at the door kind of thing, right?
Yeah, it's pretty stressful and humbling, if you will. But my wife and I, we wanted to have some more kids, and I knew that I had a spot in the business, and wasn't exactly how I wanted to come back, but I did what I had to do, and to make ends meet. But we have my mom and dad, great work ethic, built a super strong engine. And I knew that when the time came for me to kind of get back in and join them, that I had a lot to bring to the table. And they really, what they had built, I knew that I could supercharge to a point. And so it was a good time. I brought a lot of technology, at that in '08, '09, there wasn't all the tools and the technology and the tricks and stuff that we have today in the modern apartment world. So, really brought some of that stuff, because the wave of renters that we're seeing today, I was bringing that technology and preparing for that into the family business. But dude, it was a serious grind. I'm not going to lie, coming back and working for the family.
Were they open to your suggestions when you came back?
Yeah, it was a battle. But I had worked for a bigger corporation and was bringing some higher level, more systematized, more high weekly meetings, right? Like that was not a thing that happened in the family business, or even the forward thinking of, hey, let's get all the properties on one big sheet and let's check our leverage out. How are we sitting with all the loans? What should we be refinancing? And it led to us making some pretty big investments outside the family. I did realize that I couldn't change the family business model into the shiny red Ferrari that I wanted to build. And so, while I was working for the family business, I actually bought the ones in Dayton we're talking about in a separate company with a more modern cost structure that could support bringing in outside money. So that's how I got the 400 units started in Dayton, sort of outside the family business.
And it was at that time, was there any kind of like pushback of you kind of starting your own thing on the side?
Well, eventually, yeah, I'll get to the pushback. It was a big push, but what I ended up doing is saying, okay, if we're going to really grow this thing and we're going to take the engine that my mom and dad built and my brother, we've got to start to take some outside money to scale up and get bigger. And so while I bought those properties in a separate kind of company that ultimately got spun out, my mother and my father and my brother and my sister were major investors in that. So they had a part in that. Ultimately, it led to me getting fired in 2018. But it was a challenge to take a bunch of folks that have been very active in real estate business their whole life and buy another property that they're not 100% in charge of. So, it was honestly, it was a real struggle and a grind. And like we were talking earlier, the grind was so hard. I had a big alcohol problem from 2000, the Great Recession through 2018. And I've just celebrated 4 years of sobriety last week. And, it was a grind. I ended up with a bad alcohol problem that almost tore up my family. And it was a challenge, man. It was a real struggle, but 4 years.
So was the wake up call, because you got fired in 2018 and the alcohol went to 2018. So was the wake up call the firing?
I think it was part of it. My father and I battle a good bit, and we were the deal size that we were doing. I talked a little bit about, down in 2013, we started investing in the Texas market. Ultimately, we flipped about 4,500 to 5,000 units down there. And the deal size that we were getting into after we really got investing with other people and partnering, the deal size and the speed of the deals. And, my dad was wanting me to read the entire contract for some of these deals we're buying. And I'm like, I can't read that whole contract. I pay that guy over there. Like, I'm not a lawyer. I can't read it all. And ultimately, I just think that he couldn't adapt to the way that you do business in the modern era. And yep, one day he's just like, yeah, you're out of here. I'm like, you can't fire me from all these properties that I own. You can fire me from your management company. But it turned out to, it was a wake up call. And then I said, if I'm really going to grow this next phase, I've got to take care of my alcohol issue and get my side of the street clean and go on. So it turned out to be a great thing. It didn't feel like it that way at the time, my man, but it was something I had to go through.
Now you're in that low moment. I mean, what was the process of, okay, I'm going to do this on my own now? And I know you said you did some stuff on their own back in 2013. Was it different the second go around time now that you're kind of almost separated from your family now because you had that falling out? I mean, what was that process now the next time in 2019?
Well, along the way, my brother and sister have been my partners through all this, and they're great partners to have. And, we all have decent sized balance sheets. When we first started partnering with other people, we needed my father and his net worth and his liquidity to get the loans. Well, as we started growing and doing more stuff, we didn't really need him as much as we would have, back in 13 and 14 and 15. And so really we just sort of shed it off, mom and dad a little bit, and my brother and sister and I, and they became my partners, and they would help guarantee loans and help provide liquidity and equity to go do more deals. So we just sort of grew up, if you will. We were, late 40s, mid 40s, growing up and doing our own deals. So, I had been doing it. We could do it without the other high net worth individual.
For people listening right now that maybe have children or have a family business, they're looking to kind of transition or bring on family members. Is there things that you've kind of learned? I mean, I know you're still working fantastic with your siblings, and maybe they have that falling out with your parents. I mean, are there things you learned that if you were to do this again or bring your own kids in the future, I mean, that these are must do? Yeah,
great question. Yeah, I think that a big thing is just, you've got to, I guess, compensate according to skill set. And so, having a proper, I guess when you look at the structure, one person can't do all the work. They've got to have a compensation model, and that might be through the GP structure, how the deal is put together, or asset management fees or acquisition fees. And so I think it's just being realistic about, if you want to scale and grow, then you've got to build a team, and you've got to pay that team and get good people around you. So it's just making sure that as you take on, or whether you're growing with your family or your kids or whoever, that you save some money to pay a team to allow you to scale. Like, one guy can't do all the financial analysis, all the tax returns, find all the deals. You just can't do it all. And maybe, my dad bootstrapped everything, right? And I think a big piece of advice is, and I have to stop myself today, stop bootstrapping everything. Get some help, get a mentor, get people around you to get the right structure in place. So, yeah.
How do you divide or define, I guess, the roles for each individual? Do you need that one person to kind of put everyone, hey, this is what you're good at? Or is there a way to do it as kind of a communal?
Well, I think in most partnerships, right, you'll sort of figure out, whether there's a yin and a yang. One person's good at other stuff. You got to figure out who's good at what, right? Because you don't need 100% hunters. You need a hunter, and you need an operator, an integrator, right? So you have to figure out who's better at what. Like, my sister is great on the creative side, interior design. What colors do we paint? What's the logo look like? What's the name? That's not my strong set. So having her complement me, I'm good on the finance side. I'm good at the numbers and the relationship building and finding the deals. So you just sort of have to figure out who's good at what. And that's kind of That's kind of how you need to divide it up. And then if you've got a weak part or you're missing someone, then go out and get that person to fill that.
So what's the process now, right? You see, you have a strong structure in place, and I know we talked about it that you're always looking for opportunities, looking to expand, looking to grow. I mean, so how do you look at new possible opportunities, especially when you're talking about different markets? I mean, from Texas to Ohio, and I'm not even sure what other states you work in. So how do you look at opportunities?
I sort of look in a couple different ways. For me, I look for stuff that I want to acquire and run myself and my property management, the day to day. I like to be able to get there I'd like to be able to drive there and drive home in one day, or fly and come back in one day. So anything I can get to with a 1 hour flight or a 2-3 hour drive. So, I'm based in Central Ohio, so I sort of look into the Lexington, Louisville, Kentucky to Indianapolis to Fort Wayne area. Anywhere, like if I've got a problem and I find out I got to be able to drive there, in the morning and go address it, because I think it's important to be, involved and hands-on it to a point. Now on the passive investing side, I look around so in the Texas stuff that I have a great partner there on the ground. He's the operations. And so while we're general partners, we're actually more like a limited partner. We're more strategic. And so that kind of stuff I'll invest around the country with different people where I'm just really looking at numbers.
On the ones that you actually self-manage and they're your own properties, right? Mm-hmm. And you're driving to it. I mean, how many doors are needed to actually make it worth your while this day? Well,
I think, I'll explain it this way. I think when you start to scale up and you grow, I think you really need, like right now I've got 400 units in one city being managed by one office and one main manager. The next growth, I can't go buy a 60 unit in Cincinnati because you really need 80 units to have an on-site person, but you'd really like to have 150. So you start to look at the payroll component. And so the next move, I just can't buy one-offs. I've got to buy something I can build a team around.
Gotcha.
So that's really the next, or maybe it's where I see a path to buy a 60 and have a big enough scale where I can have a team. So I really need to have that team and in place to run it.
And what's that process look like, especially if you're looking in other areas, I guess, in that day kind of algorithm you put together? I mean, of finding the right team members, is it growing from your team, like putting someone over there, or is it finding someone new in that community that knows that community, or what's that process look like when you're expanding to another property in your portfolio?
Yeah, I mean, I think that I think I can, with my existing team, like let's say we bought a 120 unit building, we could get it started while I look to hire a manager, whether it's a local manager or I bring somebody in. I mean, we can get it started and get it going and get it operating, but long term, I'm going to need to find a very key player to go there. And I'm great at building teams, whether it's a consulting team or partners to invest with team. My current management, we have about 12 people on staff for the 400, and almost every single one of them has been with us for 4+ years. So, I'm great at building and retaining the team. And so that's one of my strong suits. So I would build a team.
Sauce?
I mean, honestly, I just really try to treat them really well. They're like family, and I try to go and talk with them and figure out what they need, and I do give them bonuses and when they're performing, and just really try to take care of them. It can be, I find out what maybe they need a gas card. It's just really working with them to stay in touch and find out what they need and make sure they're happy.
So is that like a system in place where it's like every Friday I'm talking to the team? Is it sporadically? Is it they have your direct line? I mean, what is that? Can you kind of dive a little deeper into that?
Boy, I think I wish it was more systematic. I mean, I was just thinking, I was like, okay, I need to do a little bonus. I probably should have done it back in early January, but here it is, April. I'm done with taxes. I think I'm going to give them a bonus. No, I don't have I wish it was more systematic and regimented, but it's really just, You know, when I feel like we've had a great performance quarter or something like that, then I'll take a look at it. But, you know, I go down and buy lunch and for them on a pretty regular basis and stay in touch with them. And we have holiday parties and celebrate birthdays and things like that. So
Got it. Make them feel important. Like they
yeah,
need
yeah. I mean, it's the same thing with residents. I mean, without treating the residents with a lot of respect and you know, one of the things I really focus on is making sure the residents have a good experience. I mean, our turnover right now in our portfolio is been averaging 33% when the industry average is 45%. So, I mean, that's just huge money when you think about how much expenses that saves on the turns. And, you know, if everybody's having a good experience, they stay longer and we all make more money. So it goes all the way across, right? From the tenant to the team.
If we're talking in 5 years, what's your goal? What's your hope is it expand your portfolio, expand development opportunities with other joint venture partners, or what's your hope?
Yeah, I mean, lately I've right now I have an 85 unit. I started out after college. I went to work for a developer, so I've always liked the development business. And lately I've been trying to get more educated on the development side. So I have 2 joint ventures going right now. I've got a 85 unit urban infill in Central Ohio being built, and I've got a 130 unit building in Fort Wayne, Indiana, this active adult community. So I'm sort of getting more into the development business. I have 2 other projects that I'm taking through zoning right now on the development side. And, you know, it's a tough time to go buy cash flow multifamily with the current state of interest rates in the market. So, you know, short term, I'm growing the development business, but always looking for more cash flow properties. So yeah, I think long term, it's having a nice geographically diverse portfolio. I always like to have some management. I like to stay in touch. So, you know, I'll try to add a few more cash flow properties. But, you know, I'd like to be less active at some point down the road, maybe, you know, spend more time. I've got high school age kids and trying to spend as much time with them. So, you know, I'm looking for strategic partnerships with other operators. You know, like I've been doing this for 25 years. I've done all across the board stuff. So, you know, if somebody out there has a challenging real estate project they're not sure what to do with, or might need a partner like myself with experience, I'd love to talk with them and try to help them out. And I like teaching people and I like talking to people and I like challenges.
How early in the game are you open to looking at those opportunities?
Well, I think, I mean, it starts, you know, right at the beginning. If somebody on their way up, kind of like I was 10 years ago, well, how do I have a very specific moment, like I remember being there 10 years ago going, how do I buy a 200 unit apartment complex? I got to figure that out. And my partner and I look at each other like, man, we're smart people. How do we do this? We're like, we're going to figure it out. And, you know, it would have been great to have a person like myself that I could go and talk to and say, hey man, show me how to do this. Right? Like, how do you do it? And so I think it's early on in the process. Hey, I'm looking at something. I've got, you know, a deal on the line. I'm not sure how to do it. I'm not sure what kind of financing. I'm not sure how to look at it. So I think it's got to be, you know, early in the process is when is a good time to connect with people.
Are there key takeaways? Let's say someone's a novice, or we have someone that's just out of college and they're like, you know what, that's my goal. I want to basically buy a 200 unit apartment complex. I mean, what are things that they should be thinking about, working on, kind of focusing on to make that dream a reality in the next 5-10 years?
You know what I think is so awesome about where we are and just technology in life, like all the YouTube learning stuff that wasn't there 10 years ago, right? So there's a lot of great, obviously a lot of great podcasts and places to go to learn. There's a lot of mentors out there. I think getting a mentor, connecting yourself with somebody who's done it and picking their brain. I mean, there's a lot of guys like myself that love to talk about what we do, and you can come pick our brain. And I think you do have to align yourself, right? Because when you're on the way up, you might not have the liquidity, you might not have the net worth or the experience. And by partnering with a person, you know, like myself, that's what we bring, right? And so, you know, I have a number of different partnerships with guys that maybe only have 100 units, right? And so I'm a good backstop to talk to them. Maybe they have a question. hey, just a different view, like aligning yourself with a mentor. Don't be afraid to ask for help, because there's no reason you should have to know how to do everything or figure it out all on yourself by yourself. There's a lot of guys out there that will help you out.
Well, and you talked about, right, more information now than there has ever been, right?
Yeah.
And I guess a lot of fake, or maybe people that are not really who they are, say they are, that thing. So what is there a good rule of thumb to verify? Is it simply, let's see what they have in their portfolio, or what's something that people could look at or listen to and they go, hey, this is a red flag, or this is something I should focus on, this is someone I should listen to?
Yeah, I mean, I think there are a lot of guys out there that do one deal and then they just start a podcast and talk about that one deal. And it's like, you just did one deal, dude. Like, come on.
Yeah.
Or, you know, there's a lot of things, like right now in some of the chats and the places where I hang out in, it's all about the quality of the operator, right? Like, I mean, you know, anybody could have made money the last 10 years, right? But when the market changes and it gets crazy, you got to really look at their operations. And, you know, if they're asking you for money, how much skin in the game do they have? Right. You know, usually when I'm doing a deal, I've got my kids in there. I've got my mom and dad in it. I've got friends. So I'm not going to let them down. My money is right there next to the people that I asked to put their money in. So, you know, take time. You know, there's a couple rules. I guess some people look at it from review the market that you're looking to put money in, then the operator. But I think you got to do both simultaneously. Does the opportunity make sense? And do I like the operator? You can always get rid of the bad people, right? But you've got to make sure you like that operator and you're comfortable with the operator. And so, you know, getting to know them and feeling comfortable, and how much skin do they have in the game, right? Like if you're doing a deal and that operator's not bringing any money to the table, run away, right? Like that means they don't have anything to lose.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's probably a big takeaway right there, is that make sure that they're bringing, maybe not just them, they're bringing some actual monetary value to the actual deal to make it, I mean, worth your time and feel safe. Thank you, Nate, so much for being here today. If someone's listening and they're looking to pick your brain, they might have opportunity, something that they're just like racking their head against and they got to figure out how to do it. What's the best way of them getting more information about you and your team?
Yeah, you could go to my personal website. That's natefisher.net, natefisher.net, or the business account, Peak 10 Group. And I think I've got my, I don't know if it showed up. Email is nfisher@peak10group.com.
Perfect.
So yeah, love to talk about it. I'll talk about this for 24 hours a day. So
yeah, guys, go in the show notes. All the information should be there. Reach out to Nate if you have any projects. I mean, sometimes, I was at a conference the other day for the YMCA. I'm a board member there, and they say some people just look too small, right? You got to look bigger. I mean, maybe you're in the real estate business and you're looking at, 5-unit apartments. I mean, maybe there's opportunities of 100, 200, 300, whatever it is, but you're not looking big enough, or you think it might not be doable. So reach out to Nate, because you never know when those opportunities might be there. One last question, Nate.
Sure.
I know you had a falling out. I know this is going back, right, with your father in 2018. What's his perception of your business and what you've been able to accomplish now over those years?
I think he's pretty impressed. I mean, he's still a great investor to have, and I would genuinely say that I think he's proud of where I've gone and kind of getting my side of the street clean, if you will, and getting my life together. He's got 3 great grandkids, and I would say he's genuinely pretty proud of me. He taught me a lot of great things, and I'm extremely thankful for that.
What a big difference from the guy in the cowboy hat to where you are now, where your father was to where you are now. Thank you, Nate, for being here. Hopefully everyone got some great nuggets. Please subscribe, please share, and go find Nate. Bye, everyone.
Thank you all. Thanks.